I started early on really saying to my son, I've got to go to work. I wanted him to understand that this was also a part of me. So I learned to really share with my son the other versions of myself.
Hello and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret, and today I am so excited to be talking to Emmy award-winning TV host and best-selling author Tamron Hall. Tamron has just released her first children's book, HARLEM HONEY. The book is about family and love and the lessons in finding home. The character in the book is named Moses and is inspired by her 5-year-old son. Welcome, Tamron.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm excited to talk with you.
Really excited. So we all know you from your very successful television career. What made you want to write this book?
You know, it's so interesting. The first bit of advice that I received once I had my son at age 48, by the way, and there was a lot of advice.
God bless you. I am
I know,
also
right?
with you in the older parent category.
I call it late to the party. But the
Late
party
to the
didn't
party,
start till
but
we walked in.
there you go. Now it's a real party.
Now
that
it's a
we're
real
here.
party. I'm 48 years old, and the pediatrician that we had at the time said to me, parent the child you have, right?
Mhm.
And I thought that was such a powerful statement, but I was unsure of what that meant until, of course, you start parenting and you notice the unique things about your child and all of these interesting things that come up in your family. And for us, Moses was born in 2019. His first birthday was right after the shutdown. The whole world that this
He's
kid
a
had.
pandemic
He's a
baby.
pandemic baby.
Yeah.
And so we had great plans of hanging out with grandma and cookouts and barbecues in Texas. And his cousins were going to dote all over him and be all over him and all of these things that we had planned. And there he ended up with mom and dad in the house, stuck inside.
Right.
And when we reemerged, for us, we noticed that in the home, my son was super confident. Like I would say, because ruling the roost, right? Because he'd been ruling the roost. It's just us and in this house. And we emerged and he was a lot more shy. You know, we went to his very first birthday party, Margaret. He was 2. Now imagine how many birthday parties he would have attended over that time. He was 2. We go into the birthday party and my son is hiding behind me. His hands were clammy. And I noticed all of these things that we describe as shy, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking, okay, this is a fluke. We go to the grocery store and it's like, Mom, what's going, he'd never been to the grocery store. I think the first time my mom took me to the grocery store, I might've been 6 weeks old. I'm in Texas,
Sure.
I probably picked out the fruit. And this kid is almost 2 and he's going into the grocery store and he's so shy. But when we got home, he could tell you everything we saw, everything we heard, what he wanted to do, but he didn't do it. So I said, okay, how do we meet this child and parent the child that we have? And we started to have a conversation with ourselves about curiosity, right? And for me as a journalist, curiosity is the cure for everything. You know, if you ask somebody what they had for dinner, you have a conversation. What's their favorite food? What's the thing that your mom makes or your grandma makes or your dad makes that you really love? Or, all of these things about curiosity we felt would open up the door to this kid exploring life. And when I tell you, it was like, oh, wow, a light bulb, like curiosity. Oh, how novel is that? This can open up the world. So the book was inspired by, our journey with Moses and using curiosity of your neighborhood. In this book, it's Harlem. That's where our first home was. But in truth, I grew up in Little Luling, Texas. My street on Cosi Drive was my neighborhood, and it was the most important place in the world, even though only 5 houses were on that little country street. And so for all of us, before we go to school, the introduction to life is your neighborhood.
Right.
Whatever that neighborhood looks like, that becomes your diving in to the world.
We talk a lot to a lot of different authors, and they often say, this is the book I needed, the book that they have gone on to write, right? They had a kid with a specific thing, or they were a mom who felt very isolated. And I love that starting point, which is, this is the story that I wish I had. And that seems to be the starting point that you're starting from.
I had a multi-tier starting point, to be honest with you. My mother, when I told her about, the book and she started to reveal stories about my own personality, even though I'm in TV and I
Mhm.
present very outgoing.
For
Even
sure.
now, my friends call me a social loner. Now, I
Huh.
love people, but I love a dinner party at home over, we just the other day, there's this, the whole trend of these private clubs in New York. And my husband calls and goes, oh, we've got invited to meet and greet at this private club. My instinct was, well, have fun because
I
I want
do
to be at
not.
home.
My private
I,
club is called my
but,
bedroom,
but yeah,
and I'm very happy
it's
there.
very exclusive. What's that SNL spot?
Yeah.
It's very
The
exclusive. It's very
velvet rope,
private.
only
Come on,
one
the
person
velvet
gets
rope, right?
in.
I'm like, I am doing a sheep pan, chicken thighs with fennel. That's going to be what I'm doing, but people would assume that I would be eager and excited. And while I'm very fortunate to have this life where people invite me to things, my natural personality is one that closes in.
Yeah.
When I'm at my show, I'm able to have a big personality because that's an extension of my home. We call my audience the TAM fam. And I
Hmm.
mean that. I don't take family and friendship or friends who turn into family lightly. So we
Hmm.
named this group of people TAM fam. And it feels so comfortable, even though they're like 110 people in that audience every day. We do 170 shows a season. I walk out to, in my mind, family. And so I can perform and show up with this big personality. Also, the show is about curiosity. You're on right now and you're interviewing me. You're
Right.
curious about me. That opens up personality. So, yeah, it's the book that I wanted to write for my son. It's the book I needed for myself, even as an adult. And in truth, um, I hope I am seen as an empowering woman, right? I feel that
Hmm.
other women and an alliance of other women and other moms have empowered me on this journey. Um, that said, when I was looking for books for my son, a lot of the characters that were empowering for boys tended to be animated characters, a little
Mm.
dragon who was brave and curious, or a little car who believes in himself. But for girls or children who identify as female, the images were of real girls. I have
Right.
3
It's
nieces.
interesting.
Is that
Yeah.
interesting? I have 3 nieces and a nephew, and my nieces, I one of my the biggest moments, yeah, as a superior aunt, as I call myself, because I dedicated my
Nice.
life to these children that were not mine. Um, but, seeing Meredith and Brave, my niece was, like, obsessed with Brave because Brave, the character of the
Hmm.
Disney film, didn't need a prince to save her, and
Right.
I remember standing out in the hot sun in Orlando waiting for a meet and greet with Brave because we could not
Hmm.
leave. She was like, "Mickey, who? I need to see the characters from
Right.
Brave and Meredith." And I think a lot about even my own life, whether it's, a writer or a anchor who poured love in me, Midge Hill when I was in Dallas, Texas, who told me I could become what I am, or even characters like, Wonder Woman with Linda Carter. I had
Mm.
empowering women figures, but in this boy space of book, I didn't find as many selections that were empowering boys or children who identify as that in forms that look like them.
And I love it sort of starts Moses is sitting on the stoop, and it's this
Yeah.
very unsure moment, and I think allowing for that moment for boys can
Yeah.
be harder for us sometimes to say, "This is a little boy who feels out of place, he feels nervous, and he's expressing unhappiness,"
Yeah.
and that's the starting point of the story. We don't just cut to the bravery. We see him
Yes.
in that first space, which is, "I'm unhappy and
Mhm.
unsure," and I think
Yeah.
that that's something that we don't see enough for boys. Having 2 boys myself,
Yeah.
that we sort of wanna cut to the point of like,
Yeah.
"Look at the brave
Y Yeah,
superhero," but I
exactly.
like that you start at that point of like, "No, I feel really unsure right now."
Mm. Thank you for that. I can't tell you how much it means to me that you instantly picked up on that
Mhm.
because, our language when it comes to emotions, right? We know now that telling a kid, big boys don't cry or big girls don't cry is not positive reinforcement. When it comes to uncertainty and fear, things that we all experience on a daily
Right.
basis, when it comes to our children, I think for me anyway, it hit a nerve, right? Because I want to be superhero, right? I remember My kid is obsessed with Kids Bop. And he's like, oh, Kids Bop. He's
My
like, Mr.
condolences. We
I
went
know,
through that
God,
phase as well. It's not amazing. Not
listen, it
amazing.
is
Love
something.
to you, Kids Bop, but wow,
Thank
that was a
you. And
rough
they do a
phase of
great
life.
job. But let me tell
Very
you,
talented children, but I'm not sure I need to hear Lady Gaga sung by 6-year-olds.
you don't understand. So two funny stories. First of all, Cruel Summer in my home, we were somewhere and the Taylor Swift version plays. And my son's like, who is that? Like, who's that singing the Kids Bop song? I said, Taylor Swift. Who?
Right.
I was like, well, her name is Taylor Swift. He's like, who?
She stole Kids Bop.
He was
act.
offended.
Yeah.
He was offended that this woman had stolen this, who is this angelic voice that's stealing my Kids Bop? So he's in love with Kids Bop. And he says, I want to go to Kids Bop Live. It's a big concert in Jersey. And I said, okay, great. So we get tickets and we get there and it's like 5 bajillion parents and kids and we stand in line and he's cool. And it's a long line and he's cool. And we work through it. We get through. We get to our seat, or at least near our seat. And he says, I want to go back home. And I said, wait, what? And he's like, I said, it's Kids Bop. The concert's going. So he goes, I want to get out of here. He specifically said, I want to get out of here. Now, as a mom, I'm thinking, okay, do I say, no, we're not. We paid for these tickets. You're going to get in this seat. Let's go. Be brave, right? Or do I say, you're absolutely right. Let's get out of here? Because in my heart melted.
Right.
I knew how excited he was. And I could cry now because it all rushes back to me wanting to save him, right? Well, wanting him to be free of this fear. And I said, okay, we're just going to stand here for a minute. We don't have to go to our chairs. You can look around. And I gave him the time to take it in. And before I knew it, he's in his seat. We are dancing and we're having a great time. So going back to what you said about the book, for me, I also needed this journey in creating this book as a reminder of patience, right? We talk about, motor skills, right? It's easy to put their shoes on. It's easier to put their socks on when we're rushing. We got to get out of here. I got to go. I'm going to put your backpack on you. We're going to get out the door. And that doesn't allow for them to have that moment to pull their socks on, to put their shoes on, because we're rushing to get out the door. At least I am, if I'm being honest. That is sometimes my thing. And you forget they need that time. So in this Kids Bop Live moment, first of all, I had to erase the worry of judgment, right? My kid's standing there looking terrified and I'm worried about other parents. I have to recognize half the room has experienced this. So erasing that shame, if that's the word, or the desire to want to look like the perfect mom and my kids got it all together. So I have to push that down, right? And now I've pushed down the desire to save this kid from this moment. And then I have to let rise up in me patience, which actually often in my body lives on a little lonely island because I am rushing through the day. So I have to allow.
To sea. Yep.
Right. He's out to sea. It's like patience is waving. Like I need to be saved. So I reel in patience and let the other stuff die down. And to see him walk to that seat and end up dancing, fast forward a couple of months later, they're performing again at the Beacon Theater. This time he wants his friends from school to come. I said, okay, great. But there's a fear like, okay, oh boy, his friends are going to come. And what if he's nervous and it turns into this whole thing? He walked right in, got his popcorn, jammed out with his friends. After the concert, he had a chance to meet them. And he says, you guys did a great job. Great performance. I was like, wait, what? Who are you? Like, who is this guy?
I'm mayor all of a sudden.
I'm like Mayor McCheese over here. 3 minutes ago, you were like crying, So I was like, but I found this humor and this burst of joy. So the book really is about finding a way to bring in this joy and sharing with them that on the other side of fear is fun. And I think that we have been able to grow with Moses through curiosity. And so that's why the book takes you through the neighborhood. It takes you through restaurants. It talks about music. I find those common threads, no matter your race, no matter your geographic location in this planet, no matter your age or when you had this kid, common threads are what connects them to us as parents and connects them to the world. And food, music are generally common threads.
Here's something else that jumped out to me right away in this book that I absolutely loved.
Yes.
The mom in the book is going to work.
Yes.
And Moses, the child, is having this hard time. And the first thing she says is, I'm going to work. There's a taxi waiting out front, and I will see you later. And there's no, this is terrible that I have to go to work. I'm so sorry I have to go to work. It's just, mom's going to work. And the beginning of the adventure sort of starts from that point. But was that a conscious choice? That jumped out to me so much.
Yeah,
That like
it
mom's
was.
going to work and it's okay.
It was because my son, again, I found out I was pregnant on the day I shot my pilot of my talk show. So now I am really raising two things that I love. I'm trying to eat healthy and be present in this pregnancy while trying to also create a show that reflects the community that I want. I want this healthy, positive, inspiring talk show. So at the same time, I'm trying to nurture both of these things. And then real life happens. I've got to go to the studio every day.
Right.
As I said, we shoot 6 a week. And I originally started out like the parent who was lying on the back, like sneaking out of the room. I did every version of the caterpillar to sneak out of my home.
You're going back to 16, like you're opening the window and going out.
I'm like rappelling down the back. Like, is the car down there? And Tova Klein, who was the former lead of the Toddler Center here in New York City. It's at Barnard College. It's a really phenomenal center that studies behavior, and it starts at age 2.
We've referenced Tova Klein on the podcast.
She's brilliant, and she's just wonderful. And she talks about like you want them to see your life. You don't, you want them to understand that you're not leaving forever, right? You do return. It's almost like peekaboo, right? I always thought that was just a game, but that's to help their mind see that you can be gone, but still be there, and it's all of these things of learning, letting them know things don't just magically happen. I love my husband to death, but there are times he just magically believes all the paper towels come in. And I'm like, no, that doesn't,
we call those the dishwashing elves in my house.
It's like, and he's amazing. And he would, go out and get whatever I ask him to get if need be. But he believes that this house is stocked and ready. The toothpaste just magically appears because I am secretly online doing all these things. And to help our marriage after the pandemic, I was like, dude, listen, this is how it goes. We have to see these other sides of each other. I wanted him to see that. And also, without getting too in the weeds or emotional about it, my mom was a 19-year-old single mom. I came home with a kid, right? And I think my light just went out. Do you want me to get another one, or is it okay?
It's okay. Yeah,
sure.
It's all right.
My mom was a 19-year-old single mom, and I went home essentially with a kid. When I think about, I am 48, she was 19. That I get just so emotional knowing or not knowing, right, how much she faced and what she overcame to then go on to college and get her degree and raise me and just be an amazing human being who's now celebrating her 75th birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Mom.
Thank you. Thank you. So for me, I wanted him to see that version of me. I wanted other children to see that version of parenting.
Yeah.
Right. And that in this case, his dad stays with him on this adventure.
Yeah. And it's just part of the fabric of the story, which I think is great because we talk a lot on the podcast about work-life balance because work-life balance is important. We're all seeking work-life balance and we all have, we want to do the best for our kids. We want to do the best in our careers. We want to be the best spouses we can. But I do think that part of finding work-life balance is acknowledging our right to be working moms and not apologizing for being working moms. Because I think for a long time, the conversation was, here's how to really apologize to your kids for having a job, or here's how to deal with your guilt about having a job. And it really struck me in this book that mom's just going to work and the only result from that is that you're going to have an amazing day.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, and I've not shared this because it's still fresh in my mind and processing it. I normally don't talk about negative comments, right? But one that recently stood out was someone who posted when I was promoting the book and, and I'm showing, I did a little video of my son. I don't know if that Doechii song, Anxiety. It's my
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. Somebody's
Yeah.
watching me.
Yeah.
So I did a funny post on my social media of my dog and my kid looking out the window as I was leaving out. I wasn't even going to work. I was going to run an errand, and they're both looking out the window, wanting to go. And there was a comment that said something along the lines of, another woman working out of the home, leaving their kid to, it was
Mm-hmm.
like, it sounded like Handmaid's Tales. I will be honest with you.
You're like, first of all, I'm going on an
So,
errand.
I was
But
like, first
second
I
of all,
was going to get a manicure, that part.
exactly.
But it was, was, it was annoying,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's just probably just some random person. If I got to them, they'd say, "Oh, I didn't mean it. I was, reacting to
Right.
something
Keyboard
happened in my
warrior.
childhood."
Yeah.
Right, right. Keyboard warrior. But it was striking to me that, again, us working out of the home for some people equals a kid that is going to lose something.
Mm-hmm. And the
And
story is really you working out of the home and what Moses gains through that
yes,
experience, which
he
is so
gains
great.
independence. He
Yeah.
gains curiosity. He gains an adventure
Yep.
that leads to us, and for me, I think that that's a beautiful thing. I think, when my son triumphantly accomplishes something without me, it feels so good. On the other flip side, listen, I was doing the Oscars red carpet and my mom was here with him. She called me and she said, his first tooth has come in. And
Mm.
I was like, are you kidding me? Like, dude, I was just there yesterday. You're going to wait for the
Mm-hmm.
gums to release.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get both sides of it. I
Yeah.
genuinely do. I get that feeling of, wow, my kiddo is doing this. But I also know how it felt to have my mom FaceTime me. I'm there working. This is a big gig. I'd gotten, the red carpet for the Oscars, and she's FaceTiming me with great glee and happiness, as any grandparent would, that, he's got his tooth coming in. And she's sending me pictures. And at one point I'm like, stop sending me pictures. I'm not there.
Right.
But yeah, I get it. I get it. And
I think it's
for
important to acknowledge both sides of it because I
Mhm.
certainly wouldn't argue that, like, forget the guilt, throw it all
No,
off. It
no.
doesn't matter.
Mhm.
But there is a poignancy to both sides of it. And I
Yeah.
think that there is a great advantage to kids saying, what did you do at work today? How did it
Yeah.
go? And I'll say,
Yeah.
oh, I had these challenges or I had this difficult interaction. And that is part of we're sharing a life back and forth
Mhm, mhm.
together. I also had years where I stayed at home with my kids, which I
Yeah.
really enjoyed as well. And so it's never reaching the answer or the
Right.
goal necessarily.
Yeah.
It's just saying, like, hey, here's how this version of it plays
Yeah.
out. Here's how that version. We're all
Yeah.
doing it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And there are good and bad to both. Like there were years I saw every tooth come in and I really didn't feel very fulfilled. I was kind of miserable
Yeah.
personally, but I was there for every bump and bruise.
Yeah.
Now I don't see, I missed a birthday one year because I was
Mm.
traveling for work,
Yeah.
felt bad about it, but I feel very fulfilled. And so, it's finding that balance. It's not that
Yeah.
there's any one rule. And it's certainly not the job of someone watching you for 5 minutes on the
Yeah.
internet to tell
Yeah.
you that you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it because, I have a dear friend that most of my friends, to be honest with you, because I am a late to the party parent, their children are now in their late 20s.
Mhm.
Um, and I have one of my best friends. She's got a daughter who's graduating college in May, and then one is graduating high school. And she is now back working, right? So she spent the front end in the home and now outside of the home working. And in truth, and this is not me pandering because I know the language of, want to pit women against each other working
Right,
outside.
right,
It's all work. I
right.
mean, listen, it is. It's a difference, when you are in the home, again, things don't just magically happen, right? They don't just automatically appear in your home. And so even if the job is in the home and you are keeping the wheels on, there are things that can be shared with your children that are important lessons. Time management. I have 160 something producers and staff on my show. One of the things that I try to share with them that I feel I do well, and I'm going to claim it, I do well. I time manage well.
Mhm.
And that's a part of an experience for women, moms, whether you are occupying the space in the home 8 hours or occupying the space in an office. time management.
Mhm.
And so to me, sharing that with your kids, what the day was like, what it entailed for you to be on time to pick them up. That's not a
Mhm.
small thing to me anyway. That's
It's
not a
not.
small thing.
No, we did a bit a long time ago about mom resumes and, like, your skill set at
Right?
home, and when we're looking to hire people, I'm like, "Who's a mom?" Because
Yeah.
you know time management, you know how to
Yeah.
multitask, you have all of these skills, and it can seem a little pat, like, you have great skills even though you were just a mom, but it is
Yeah.
actually true that the
It's so
things that
true.
mothers accomplish are definitely under-recognized.
Under-recognized, and I'm gonna point the finger at us. Sometimes, going back to the core of what we were talking about in the book and her going to work, sometimes these parts of our lives we make invisible.
Mhm. Well
We
said.
make invisible to everyone in our homes, people at work. You know, even in my office, we have Zoom. Many of my producers are still working on Zoom, right? So they're hybrid schedules. And, someone's kid will run by and they'll say, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Why are you sorry?"
Why
First
are
of
you
all,
s
I'm
That's a
uncomfortable
child.
that the Zoom is in your home anyway, right? I love that Zoom saved us, but I don't need to see your bed. I don't need to
Yes.
see your kitchen. I feel like
It's
I'm
a lot of
invading your
information
privacy. Right, a
sometimes.
lot of information coming in. But I'm like, "Why are you sorry?" You
Mhm.
don't ever apologize for your child being in that video because 'cause I'm not gonna apologize for mine running behind me. And
Right.
so those are the things that I think, we make motherhood this invisible thing. We know that, well, at least I'll say this in my profession. There are a lot of women who don't even like to take maternity leave, even though they
Mhm.
get it because they're afraid they're going to be replaced by the woman who's filling in for them.
Mhm.
Or that they will be seen as now soft, so they won't get the assignment to go, to a natural disaster or something because you don't want to leave. It's this complex set of rules and things that people are silent about. But I feel like as moms, we cannot allow the world to make us comfortable erasing what we do.
Cosign. Cosign. So, this book is many things, and one of them is kind of a love letter to Harlem. I
Yeah.
love books about kids in the city. It's always been I read all those books to my kid.
Ah,
I
that's
started as
fabulous.
the cricket in Times Square in 2nd grade. I
Yes.
think that's where I started it all. But there's something about kids exploring this city. We
Mm.
just had Nora Lally, who wrote the book Back to Bainbridge on, and it's a story about a little girl in the Bronx kind
Yeah.
of learning her way. And what made you live in Harlem? And
Yeah.
so talk about setting the book there and the wonderful journey through
Yeah.
all of the amazing sights of Harlem.
Well, I think for me, that was also, again, a little bit of Tamron being oozed into this character.
Mhm.
I moved to New York in 2008. And of course, like the rest of the world, it's New York City. I
Right.
mean, the first time I went to Times Square, my mom called and she goes, "Did you get a hot dog?" I see that. I'm like, "No, I did not, woman." It's like, but it is, it is almost like a fantasy land. When you
Mm.
see Times Square and the ball drop and all of these things. But for me, as was the case when I lived in Chicago and Philadelphia, and I was a reporter in both of those cities for many, many years, it's the neighborhoods that
Mhm.
that made it. When I moved to Chicago and people would say, Chicago is a city of neighborhood. And I'm a field reporter, and that means you're going out, and all of a sudden I'm in Ukraine Village or I'm in this, Polish neighborhood and I'm getting a punchki for the first time and I'm eating foods I've never explored before. Was amazing, right? I mean,
Mhm.
like St. Patrick's Day in Chicago is
The
lit. I'm telling
best. They
you,
just did
the
it. They
best.
dyed
Yeah, I
that
know.
whole river green.
The best. I mean, and so it's the neighborhoods. And so for
Mhm.
me, coming to New York, of course, the lure of a Tribeca or the sexiness of a Soho is it's fantastic. But it's the neighborhoods of New York that you get to explore that I feel as a journalist was the most education and enlightenment and love, right? Because we love our neighborhoods. Like even that, there's
Mhm.
a famous hip hop song about New York and they name all of the neighborhoods. They don't just say Brooklyn, they name all the neighborhoods because there's a sense of pride in
Mhm.
neighborhood and
Mhm.
community. So for me, Harlem was our first home. It was the first place that we took my kid to and put him in a crib and his first steps, his first snowfall, he felt, on Stryber's Row, 138th Street in New York. So I thought it was the perfect place. It's also, like so many neighborhoods, misunderstood,
Mhm.
right? Again, I'm a rural kid. I stand up for rural kids all the time because it is easy to believe that we are just, you know, little local yokels in the back of
Mhm.
the da 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 da. So I stand up for rural families a lot. Where I'm from, there's one hospital. It is not open all the time. Many
Mm.
people who need specialized care have to drive to Austin, which is almost an hour drive for
Mm.
dialysis, for special heart care, and all these things. And so the life of a rural kid is brings on its own challenges and joys, right? Because I
Yep.
got to run in the sun and bare feet all the time with no one telling me that watch out for the car because there was no
Mhm.
car speeding down Coastie Drive, right? So
Right.
with Harlem, I felt that it was a good reminder of the neighborhood, not the mystique,
Mhm.
of the music and the voice. I mean, the Met Gala this year, not that I'm going to be invited, but I'll bring it up.
I don't
The
believe
Met
I will
Gala,
either, so
oh, well, so we will have
we
our
can
own.
Zoom and eat
We will
gummy
Zoom
bears
our
or something that night.
these gummy bears and Zoom. I hear the food's not
I
great
think
anyway.
my invite might get lost again this year.
But forever for me. But you know, the Met Gala's theme is a Harlem dandyism. And that's,
Oh.
a love letter to the fashion and to the suits and all of these things. And so for me, it was a chance to go through the neighborhood. One of our favorite books is Larry Gets Lost in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
which my son loves the Peppa Pig episode where Peppa goes to America. It's like a
Yep.
series. So to your point, it was fun to explore the neighborhood, but Harlem in this story is just a chance for families or for the reader to be curious about some place. Good Night Arizona was one of the first books my child received because we were touring, promoting my show. And we got Good Night Arizona. He still has never
Mhm.
been, but he thinks he's been in Arizona from
He
the book.
said goodnight to every part of it.
It's like, exactly.
We
And
had
so,
one of those, good night
yeah,
somewhere, I can't remember it, it was so random, I was like, "Good night, Tulsa," or something.
right. And there's so,
Saying
but
goodnight to
think
the
about
weird
it.
tower I've never heard of, but okay.
Exactly. And I'm like, let me Google how you say that. But again, travel and adventure. So this is a form of that. I'll tell you, part of the inspiration for this was really Dora the Explorer, right?
Mm.
Dora explores these fantastical things, but I thought, why not bring in neighborhoods? And my goal is to make this an ongoing series. So, the Harlem Honey goes to Austin, and then you
Mm.
can learn about these things in Austin, or he does go to Phoenix because in the book, his mother works at a gallery, studio museum, which is a
Right.
famous art studio in Harlem, world renowned. And through specifically selecting that occupation for his mom, my desire was that with her work, she travels and then he gets to
Mm.
travel with her and he learns about different neighborhoods.
Mm.
Because again, with children, we go from in our minds home to school, right?
Right.
Pre K, whatever. But in truth, they go from out that door into a neighborhood, into
Mhm.
a community. And that's their first exposure to life outside of the love nest that hopefully we've provided for
And
them.
super important, I mean, we talk all the time about kids are very supervised these days, which is great in
Mhm.
some ways. They play organized sports.
Yeah.
They have supervisors at school all the time. This grows out of bullying and bad
Yeah.
incidents and kids having really negative experiences when they're not being supervised.
Yeah.
But kids are now lacking this kind of unsupervised, and there's adult figures with the
Mhm.
kids in this book, but the idea of these kids, there's a
Well, they're
beekeeper.
leading the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
they're
kids are
leading the
leading the
way.
way, and
They're
they're
leading the
bringing
way.
literal honey. It's
Mhm.
about
Yeah.
a little girl who has a beehive, I
It's a true
guess.
story. Listen, and by the way, in Harlem, across the street from us, this family had a beehive.
Oh, that's
And they
great.
harvested honey. So that also was inspired because a lot of people are like, oh, Harlem honey. Like, no, no, across the street from us. And the bees would occasionally come by and they're like, oh, they're okay. I'm like, are you sure? So no, it's really inspired truly by this family across from us who had Harlem honey. And no, I think that's absolutely right. And that's something I think about a lot in my life because we do live in New York City. And
Mhm.
recently I was out with another mom. She is a phenomenal mom and she's got her little girl. And she and Moses are the same age. And we're walking down the street recently and she lets her child she's Eastern European, and she's kind of, we always talk about childhoods compared to New York City. So the kid is like a block up from us. And as she's getting further and further away, my heart is pounding. Meanwhile, I am clutching my child
Right.
like the stick shift of my Mustang that I got, many years ago. So I'm holding on. And she said, but I want her to be independent. I want her to know she can do things. And I'm like, well, we're in New York City.
Right.
I'm not there yet. But, when we are out, we're traveling on the tour for my book, and he's going with me to Houston, a book signing in Houston and one in New Orleans. He printed out his ticket. He's looking at his ticket. He knows his seat. He has to pull his own suitcase. I mean, and when we travel, and he travels a lot, he's been to like 6 different countries now.
Wow.
And my son takes great pride in that he's a good traveler.
Mhm.
Secretly in my mind, I'm like, this kid is reading signs. He's navigating. It's a funny story, because it feels like I have a funny story for everything, but we were on vacation, as every parent, like, I got a funny story about my kid. We were on vacation this summer. We were in Turks and Caicos with friends, a big group of friends and us. And we went back. I took him back to the room. It was getting late. And I got off the elevator. He said, Mom, this is not the right floor. And I said, oh, yeah. And I'm actually ignoring him, which is so embarrassing. I'm like, yeah. I see what I believe is our room, and the door is open. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Stephen left the door open, because I'm like blaming my husband, who's always doing things like that. I open the door. There are like 10 young people, and they're like, and I go, and we're scared. And my son is in front of me. I grab his shirt. I grab it back. Everyone's screaming. And he turns to me and goes, I told you.
This
it
was not the right room.
Our room is 1 floor up, Mom. And I was like, so
those kids got to be like, Tamron Hall from TV just walked into my room when I was on vacation.
I know. And yanked her child back like a hook. But, he reads signs. He's 5, and he has been literate since about 3.5. He reads really well. But he reads signs. And I think a lot of his reading, or feeling empowered in reading, was through travel.
Yeah.
We'll go to the airport. He's like, gate 99, bop, 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 bop. So, those are the things
Gotta figure it out.
Yeah, that's where we give him room, right? I'm not ready to let him walk a whole 2 blocks ahead of me in New York City, but he's empowered in many ways. And I am learning the importance of that. I had a very free childhood.
Mm-hmm.
My spring break was go out front and have fun and come back. Right.
Yeah. Dinner's on at 6. See you
Dinner's
then.
on at 6, get in, and we would build clubhouses and crawl under the house and find cats and all kinds of crazy things that we did as kids in a small town. But I do think, and I learned that from Tova Klein as well, just trying to remember that in this arc of life, as modern as it is and as accessible as things are, there are just fundamental human things that we have to give them, and freedom is one of them.
The book is Harlem Honey by Tamron Hall. Tell our audience where they can find everything about you, find the book. I mean, it's 2025. People pretty much know how to buy a book at this point.
Wow, you're so sweet.
Never hurts.
Listen, it never hurts. I am on social media, Tamron Hall on Instagram, and I keep you up to date on all things my life there. And on Facebook, you can get Harlem Honey wherever you buy your books. Of course, support local small bookstores, because we need them, not just because they're adorable and cute to take our kids to, but it is often women run, women owned in our communities. So you can buy wherever you buy your books. But if you go online and want to click on Amazon, do that too. I'm cool with it. But the book is available for pre-order. And I'm looking forward to our meet and greet and all the things. But it is something that I hope, parents, grandparents, and friends take a chance and read the 40 pages. I kept it short on purpose, but the message is big.
Beautiful, beautiful book. Your kids will really enjoy it. And you'll learn a little something about Harlem, too.
Yes.
Love it. Tamron, this was a great conversation. Thanks so much for talking to me today.
I adore you. Thank you.